Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Coaster News. And as always, we've got some amazing news from different theme parks, rides and attractions all over the world. So let's just get straight into the news today. Our top story for tonight, Vekoma has introduced a new ride model that is similar to their original boomerang models and their family boomerangs, but it's much more extreme. And basically what this is, obviously back in the olden days, I say that like it was like 100 years ago. Like a few decades ago, when Vekoma were building regular boomerang coasters, which are, I'm sure many of you all heard of, which are the original type. They got cloned around all, like hundreds of different theme parks around the world. And I've not been on one, unfortunately, but I've heard that they're not that great. So obviously, at some point, they discontinued the original Vekoma Boomerang, which had 3 inversions and was a total of, I think, about 117 foot tall or something like that. And if you don't know what a Vekoma Boomerang coaster is, basically, it is a type of roller coaster that goes backwards into a lift hill that is about 100 foot tall, then it drops down that lift hill because there's nothing at the top of that lift hill. It's not a complete circuit coaster. Then it goes down back through the station into a cobra roll, followed by a vertical loop up into like an almost vertical spike, and then it goes back round through the layout until it goes back into the station. So like I said before, they made loads of those all around the world, but then at some point in I think like the early 2000s or something, they discontinued them, and since then they've been building a newer version of the boomerang known as a Vekoma Family Boomerang. Now, unlike the original Vekoma Boomerang, these new family boomerangs actually varied in different layouts. There have been a few of them around the world, obviously not as many, not nearly as many as there have been Vekoma boomerangs, there's like hundreds of them. But there's been quite a few family boomerangs all over the world. There's even a few in the UK as well. There's Accelerator at Drayton Manor and Velociraptor at Paulson's Park. I think those are the only 2 Vekoma family boomerangs in the UK. But just this week, Vekoma introduced a new ride model called the Super Boomerang, which is a new variant of the Vekoma Boomerang, a new generation version of the Vekoma Boomerang. There's a much different layout than the original one. Apparently, it's capable of inversions, from what I've heard, and it's got loads of different airtime moments, and there's a much more extreme version of what their recent family boomerangs have been like. So it sounds very interesting. I'm actually glad to see that they're reintroducing their older ride models. Glad that they're Vekoma reintroducing their older ride models that they discontinued a while ago. Because a few months ago, they announced that they're going to be building a new Vekoma tilt coaster at Energylandia, and then not long after they announced they're going to build one at Land in Texas, which is the same place that has that palindrome Ghost Hour shuttle infinity coaster that's scheduled to open later this year. And obviously, if you don't know, the first tilt coaster ever built was obviously from Vekoma. It was Gravity Max in a park in Taiwan, I think it was. Obviously, you will have seen a lot of pictures of it on the internet where the track literally tilts 90 degrees into a vertical drop. It became very popular, but since then it was only one built. But now there's being one built at Energylandia and Land. So they're reintroducing their older ride models, and it's a new generation Vekoma tilt coaster. But now they're reintroducing the boomerang coasters, and I mean like the extreme ones, not like these recent ones which are only family coasters. I mean these have been good boomerang coasters, these family ones, but I feel like the extreme ones are better. But I haven't been on them, but if they did a new generation Vekoma Boomerang as an extreme coaster, that would be amazing. And I think this one, they've already announced the first one going to a park in, I think it was China, I believe, I'm not sure. I didn't really read a whole lot about which park it was going to, but I know it's going somewhere in the near future. So yeah, that all sounds absolutely incredible. I do hope one day that they build a Vekoma Super Boomerang in the UK. Because we do actually have, I think we have one original Vekoma Boomerang left, and that's Wipeout at Pleasurewood Hills. I don't think we have any others left. We have 2 family boomerangs, like I said, Accelerator and Velociraptor. And I just hope one day they build a Super Boomerang in the UK, but who knows? In other news today, Flamingo Land have officially revealed the logo for Inversion, not Sick, Inversion, that's what I'm calling it, at their new 10 Inversion coaster, which they are calling Sick. And obviously this ride looks to be absolutely amazing. They recently revealed the logo for Inversion. Okay, if you wonder why I'm calling it Inversion, I mentioned this in my previous coaster news video. I am personally going to be calling it Inversion because I do not think that Sick is a good name for a roller coaster. But Flamingo Land have actually officially are calling it Sick. And obviously it says that on the logo. Now, this was only just recently surfaced online, and a lot of people were unsure as to whether this was official or not. But in a recent construction update, where they had done some construction on the ride building, they actually showed that same logo on the front of the station just below the lift hill. So it is definitely confirmed that that is the ride logo. And if you want to know my personal opinion on it, I mean, it's not the best logo in the world. It's kind of one of the best logos for coasters that Flamingo Land have done, although that's not saying much because there are only 4 other coasters at Flamingo Land that have logos. Obviously, Hero, Velocity, Mumbo Jumbo and Kumali. Basically the 5 main coasters at Flamingo Land. And this one, it's not the greatest that they've done, but I mean, they could have done a lot worse. They could have literally made it look like actual Sick, but that would not have been good at all. So I'm glad they went for what they did. But obviously, it kind of looks like one of those logos that are used for YouTube channels and just social media pages. I guess that's kind of what the style they were going for. I mean, I know the ride isn't themed to social media; it's themed to street fashion, which is a very bizarre theme for a roller coaster. Because obviously the ride, if you didn't know, is being sponsored by the fashion company Six Silk, which is based in Scarborough. And the reason they're doing this is because the CEO of Flamingo Land, Gordon Gibb, and the owners of Six Silk have been close friends for quite some time, and they wanted to basically collaborate and build this new coaster at Flamingo Land, but sponsored by Six Silk. So obviously, if it's being sponsored by a fashion company and is literally themed to street fashion, which is, like I said, quite an unusual theme for a roller coaster, I'd imagine they're going to make some quite really good merchandise for this new ride. I mean, there has been a building basically built next to Velocity that's, I think they've said is going to be like a shop for the ride, which will be very interesting to see. What they're going to sell different merchandise for it. I think it'll mainly be clothes because obviously Six Silk is a fashion company. Obviously they're the sponsor for the ride, but the ride itself is literally named after Six Silk. So could this ride technically be themed to an IP? I'm not sure. I mean, it's sponsored by Six Silk, but it is literally called Sick, which is the first word in the name of the company. So could this ride technically be IP themed, intellectual property? Basically, if you don't know what intellectual property means, it's when a ride is themed to an existing property, so like a film, a TV show, a video game, or just anything like that. So a great example is Solar Ride at Thorpe Park, or Black Mirror Labyrinth, or Gangster Granny the Ride, or Angry Birds Land, or things like that. Those are all IPs. And so would Sick, or Inversion as I'm going to call it, technically be classed as an IP because it is literally called Sick, which is the same name as the company? I'm going to start that debate. Is it an IP? Let me know in the comments below if you think that this ride is technically an IP. But other than the name not being that great and the logo not really being the best either, it's not really the best logo, I've already said that. But it's better than what they could have done. It's not the best, but it's not the worst either. So I'm kind of glad what they've gone for. Obviously the rides, it's not going to have loads of theming or anything. It's going to be more stylised and more modern, like Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Although they have said it's going to have a few water effects, such as waterfalls, water cannons, and mist effects made of water vapour. I don't know where half of these are going to be. I think I might know where the water cannons will be. Because if you haven't seen the construction updates, the final turnaround section has got a few little things been added on the side of the lake, which the ride goes around. That's rumoured to be the water cannon. As for the water vapour, that could literally be in the station building. As for the waterfalls themselves, I have no idea, but we'll just have to wait and see. Also in the news today, and this is a bit of sad news for many coaster enthusiasts. I actually made a video about it earlier this week. The Environmental Agency have objected to the plans for Project Exodus at Thorpe Park. And this is one of the main things that we were fearing since the plans were submitted or just announced 6 months ago by Thorpe Park. Because if you haven't heard recently, which if you haven't, how couldn't have you? It's been all over. It's not even been mentioned by any enthusiast ever. I'm kidding. It's been talked about by literally every single coaster enthusiast in the UK. Full stop. Basically, if you didn't know, Project Exodus is a new roller coaster that's being planned by Thorpe Park, and they've said it's going to be, if the plans get approved, it'll be the UK's tallest roller coaster, and they've said they want it to be 236 foot tall. Now, if you compare that to the big one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, even though Blackpool Pleasure Beach advertised the big one as being 235 foot tall, that's actually from sea level. So technically, the big one at Blackpool is only 213 foot tall. So Project Exodus, when they say it's 236 foot tall, that's actually not from sea level, that's from normal ground level. So it will literally be like 23 feet taller than the big one, which is quite insane. Obviously, it'll be the tallest ride in the park, because the current tallest ride at Thorpe Park is Stealth at 205 feet. It's also rumoured to be the fastest coaster in the UK, because if it's that tall, it's going to be quite fast. Currently, the fastest coaster in the UK is also Stealth at Thorpe Park at 80 miles an hour. And basically, I'm just going to get straight to the point. If you want to hear about Project Exodus, I've got a full playlist dedicated to that ride. Go check it out for yourself. But basically, recently, the Environmental Agency, Thorpe Park submitted plans for the rides back in March, and over the past week, the Environmental Agency has basically said to Thorpe Park that they object for the ride to be built because the site they want to build it on is on a floodplain. Literally, it's being built over a lake that goes out into the actual lake that surrounds the islands that is Thorpe Park. And they said, I've made a whole video about this, but to put it simply, if they build it on a floodplain and attract loads of people there and that site floods, it won't be safe. So it's not been like completely refused, but if Thorpe Park want still to go ahead with this ride, they've got to try and convince the Environmental Agency that all other possible sites for this ride are at greater risk, and that they could get if it works, then they'll hopefully in a few months' time get planning permission to build it. But either way, the opening could still be delayed until from what was originally a March 2024 opening. So it's not exactly great news at all, because it's kind of been a bump in the road for Project Exodus's planning, but hopefully, fingers crossed, Thorpe Park will prevail and we'll manage to get everything sorted and we'll be able to one day rise the UK's tallest roller coaster. And finally in the news today, a Merlin Magic Making van has been spotted outside of Duel at Alton Towers, and that's suggesting a rumour of a possible refurbishment for Duel in the near future. And this is kind of a spark of hope for Duel at Alton Towers. Because if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically, Duel at Alton Towers is a dark ride located at Alton Towers in the UK, if you didn't. Basically, it was originally known as Haunted House. It opened back in 1992, and it operated for about 10 years before, in 2003, they renamed the ride to Duel the Haunted House Strikes Back, and they added laser guns to the rides. And I never got to go on the original Haunted House, but apparently it was much better when it was known as Haunted House. And since then, the rides, like all the special effects and the theming, has kind of gone to not been that great, well looked after. I didn't know what I was saying there, I couldn't get the words out. Basically, especially this year, all the theming and effects haven't really been well looked after at all. Because one major problem that's been an issue with the ride for a few years now is the Tromble Tunnel, I think it's called, in the middle of the rides, where it was basically a tunnel that used to spin 360 degrees, and so it looked like that you were spinning. It was really cool. I actually remember when it used to operate, but a few years ago it broke and they never really fixed it since, so it's just been kind of stuck like that, not moving for the past few years. And the ride effects have not been that great recently. But recently there has been a Merlin Magic Making van spotted literally just outside the backstage area of the ride. So this could possibly suggest that the ride could get a refurbishment in the near future, possibly 2023. Don't know why I'm doing this. But this is great news for the ride if it's true, because then that means that the future of the ride could be safe. Because if they kept it as it is now, I don't see the ride having much of a future. But this news about Merlin Magic Making arriving at Alton Towers is great. I don't expect them to like fully reframe it back to the haunted house the way it was. But what I'm hoping they'll do is, one, remove the laser guns just to make it a normal immersive experience dark ride, because the laser guns are good, but it's not really like making it like a proper immersive ride like it's supposed to be. I mean, I know it's not on the level of something like Rise of Resistance at Disney World or anything like that, but it's still supposed to be an immersive ride, and these laser guns haven't really helped with that sort of situation. So I'm hoping, one, they'll remove the laser guns, two, they'll fix all of the effects that are currently broken, including the Tromble tunnel thing, I don't know what it's called. Three, get rid of the UV lights. Because a few years ago they added UV lights to some parts of the ride, and that really wasn't good for it, because it's kind of revealing all the mechanisms for how some of the effects work. Like there's a room that has some flying bats in the air that are spinning. You can see all the motors and the mechanisms for how that works. So I'm hoping this Merlin Magic Making that's arrived at Alton Towers, hopefully, like, checking the ride, earliest 2023 I could see the ride opening with a new refurbishment. But it's only just a rumour at this point, but it is still really exciting for the future of Duel at Alton Towers. So yeah, that is it for this week's episode of Curse News. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, then please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you like. See you in the next video. Bye!